It's probably better if you do it because then you get the stereo output.
Cool. Yep. I think it's recording. I clicked record, so the
So,
hope is we are good. Yep. So I am indeed recording it. Um, yeah. So that is kind of it session-wise. Like, it's not a ton, not really a ton going on in here, but yeah. Never really done anything like this before. So, you guys have any questions or anything?
Can you zoom in for the drum part, please? I see how's the drums, all this stuff in building that. The drum part's like,
Yeah. So, like the drums and the builds.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's just like a 103 one. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I usually do I like to do these claps in stereo, like one main one, so you can hear this one here is like it's like standard clap. This one is a bit more attacky, and then this one here is, I think, also just kind of like a quick attack. I build those, usually kind of spread them out in the stereo. Before most of my drops, I always have like just a reverse cymbal that just kind of, kind of brings in that like quick little anticipation feeling. And I've started taking out my kicks in the drop because I feel like when they hit into the drop, it's way more punchy. It like hits way better. I'm sure. And then I always layer a bunch of drum builds. So I have this one that I think, if I remember correctly, this one has like, yeah, just like a quick little trappy snare build. This one I think is a bit more of like a hybrid one. Yeah. So kind of more like a weird fucked up one. And then I always layer my own snare with like a giant kind of dubby snare that really brings in the meat of everything. So, and then I always pitch them up at the end. So, and in that drop, I always layer
two octaves, or
yeah, I usually just go up 2 octaves. Actually, no, this one's probably 1. I usually just do one that stretches out. Otherwise, the drum starts sounding oddly bit crushed, but not in a cool way. Like it ends up just turning kind of into noise. So it's usually just pitched up. I'd be able to just click on it and see what's going on here. Where if I can get this bar thing out? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Let's see. I freeze almost all my audio, so I never remember. But there we go. So you can see it just pitches up. Yeah, and 1 octave just goes up on that last build. Yeah, and then in the drop, generally on the drop snares part, I always layer. This is actually kind of a cool trick that I learned. So this one here, this is the attack. Like this is like the big meat of the snares. I don't know if you guys know this, but I didn't know this, but in Ableton, I don't know how it is in FL Studio or Logic or anything, but when you drop in a sample in Ableton, unless you turn the option off for it, it automatically fades the front and back of the sample so you don't get like clicks and stuff on it. But the problem is that when you do stuff with transient heavy samples, so like kicks, snares, claps, things like that, you don't want to lose that initial transient. So you got to go in and actually remove that fade on drums and stuff like that. Unless you set it up to not do that. But so these two are like pretty transient heavy. And then this one, I just wanted the end of it. So this one just has this like
an airy kind of.
Yeah, like just, it kind of gives in like a little bit of tone, but it's not a lot. It's just like this kind of, it's a really weird sound. I don't really know how to explain it, but I liked it when I was clicking through the samples and was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then this one is like a bit more tonal, snappy. It doesn't have almost any low end in it, but it has just like a very snappy sound. And then this top one here is very like punchy. So when you combine all of them together, I just feel like it gets like a very, I don't know, it's like a kind of a unique sounding snare that I think it
Are you tuning any of your drums?
Always. I tune everything. Generally, I work in like the key of between D, E, F, and G. Like those are the ones that I mainly work with because subs tend to react best in those keys, and anything lower, they kind of get flubby and lost. Although stuff in A usually sounds sick if you can actually get a nice heavy sub. So I usually take my kick, always take my kicks, and then I run. If you go to the audio effects thing, I'm sure this is everybody in Ableton or is everybody FL Studio? What is everybody running?
Logic.
FL.
Logic, FL. Okay, so we got cool. All right, well everybody's in here then. Cool. I don't know what it would be in FL or Logic, but there's this thing called Spectrum that runs in Ableton. That when you drag it over into a drum, you drop it on, comes up with this little thing here that when you make it pretty big, you like hit it, it'll pop up and show you where exactly the drum transient is hitting. And as long as that transient, like that punch and like the meat of the drum falls in the key of the song, you're good. Now, I try to tune them to the root. So if I'm writing an F sharp, I try to tune the drum to F sharp. But a lot of times with like these really short, like dubby kicks, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, maybe I'm the idiot and think it doesn't matter when it really does. But I just feel like it's such a quick transient with no real tone or body that you're not really gaining much by tuning it. But I still recommend tuning it because then everything's going to be tightened all together. So I do it with kicks. I do it with snares. I usually don't worry about it with tom fills and stuff like that, but I try to, I don't know. I just try to get everything kind of.
What do you use to tune it?
So if you click, and I'm sure this is the same thing for, Logic and everything, but if you click the sample, like double click it, see down here where it says transpose. Let's see if I can move this whole thing up to the top. There we go. Right here where it says transpose. If you rock that up, like see how it shortens it? You're pretty much going up by semitones. So right now the kick is in the key of F sharp, but this would be G and then G sharp. And if you want to get even finer with it, you use this fine tune one down here that will kind of, oh shit, this thing is telling me that my meeting is going to end in 10 minutes unless I upgrade to a paid account. I guess I'll upgrade. I mean, I guess. All right, give me 1 second so I can fucking pay for this shit.
Yo, don't sweat it, dude. You don't have to pay for it for us, dude. It's okay. It's fine.
No, I mean, I'll just pay for it now and fucking cancel it. It's fine. I don't really give a shit.
When you like pitch stuff up, does that like damage, I guess you'd say, like the sound? Because normally when I like pitch up like a snare or something, like you lose a lot of that I guess the sound that you wanted originally, you know what I mean?
Oh, dude, totally. It totally can. So my whole thing is I try to find something that's like close-ish to what I'm looking for. So I try to find a kick or something that's like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like this sounds, kind of close to what I want. And by doing that, sorry, I'm trying to fucking doing.
What about a pitch shifter from the waves? What's the name?
Wait, say it again?
Yeah. The sound shifter from waves.
Oh yeah.
That was also when I try using mine. I always like give some kind of like an artificial effects. I try to be like not losing the original sound, but it just feels like And I don't even go at that high pitch. I just go for like maybe I'll say like probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like generally when okay, cool, we're good guys, so we can stay on and man, they really get you with this shit, don't they?
Cheers, dude.
All right, so yeah, so when you like try to pitch this stuff and you try to like do stuff, I usually try to find like when I first heard this kick, it was like, okay, cool. That has a lot of meat to it. That's about what I want in my kick.
Mm-hmm.
So I then what I'll do is I'll run the spectrum and be like, okay, cool. That's falling around here. So okay, my track is in F sharp. So I need to, and this kick is falling in F. So all I got to do is pitch it up a half a semitone. So I'm good. Generally, that's not really going to lose a ton of, you know, audio. But if you get a kick and like the bass of it is like in D and your track is in F sharp or G and you start pitching it up, it's probably going to lose the character that you're looking for. It might not, but a lot of times it could. So I just try to find something that's around what I'm looking for. And I've started like kind of collecting all the samples and shit too. So like in my little, you know, one shots thing, like I have all the kicks that I generally use or like stuff like that. I have mainly the stuff that I collect in sessions. So if I know that, oh, this is going to be another key, most of these kicks and stuff are going to fall in, you know, F sharp or F or whatever I'm usually writing in. So I don't have to pitch up and down that stuff as much, and I try to find something I usually enjoy. But I don't really layer top kicks that often, but I felt like this song needed it. So it was just, you know, taking this, it's simple as it is and as tiny as that sounds, like it really makes it cut in that drop. And let's see.
Yo, would you do me a really big favor and show me how you EQ'd the sub in like relative to that drop kick?
Yeah. So let's go find the sub here. Actually, I did something very rare in subs that I never do. See that boost right there?
Yeah.
That is like a huge no-no for me. I usually never do that. I try not to boost stuff that often. I usually try to cut and then boost like very subtly. But there was something about this, like this hybrid trap 808 that I thought sounded so sick. You can kind of hear it. But it just had like this buzziness to it that I was like, man, this sounds sick. Actually, probably let me turn it up a little bit, 27.5. So it's like here. So
Dirty, yeah.
So I boosted that there, and then in this kick, the drop kick, you can see I have a lot cut out. I mean, it's starting at about 116. Okay. Have a slope in that 116. So I don't really have to worry too much like about the information that's existing in here because this is all sub. And I kind of want it to feel like there's something missing when that sub isn't hitting. So in order to do that, I just kind of cut these kicks just a little bit. So they still punch pretty hard, but generally in like trappy stuff, dubstep stuff, you definitely want more of like a mid-range punchy kick. You don't really want like a kick with huge low, like you wouldn't want like a big room kick or some shit that is going to take up so much information at low end. Then you try to layer it with the sub, it's just going to be completely, you know, it'll nix it out. It's just not going to work. So, and
then one last follow-up on that. What are you doing to sidechain? Because the kick and the sub relationship is like what makes the drop so hard.
Thanks,
I'm trying
man.
to figure out how you achieve like such clarity.
Yeah, so here is a huge trick that I just learned. Well, I don't know if this is like what a lot of people do, but what I do is I find, so this setting right here in Ableton's compressor, -22 release, all the way down attack in a 4:1 ratio, it's a pretty heavy sidechain. Like it's definitely like a pumping sidechain. But you can kind of adjust it by this ratio right here. So this threshold is, or sorry, threshold, not ratio, but this threshold is about -12.9. every single one of my groups has the same exact compressor. Notice how it all has the same settings. This one side down to the kick, this one and snare. I only do the kick for the subs. I don't sidechain them to the snares, but I do it to the snares on drop groups. You can see the threshold down here is way deeper, but they all share the same, attack and release. So that, when I learned that and figured that out, it was unreal how much more tightened the mixes started sounding, because everything is sharing this same sidechain. Like everything's doing the exact same thing, but you can adjust.
You're saying that the attack and release has to be the same across all of your groups?
Now, I don't know if that's what a lot of people do, but I just noticed that when I started doing it, everything cleaned up like insane. Like everything pumped at the same time,
Gotcha.
Everything pushed in and out at the same time, and it wasn't anything insane. Like everything just felt so much more glued together when I figured that out and started doing it. So like I don't really, I don't obviously do it on the drums or anything. I only do it to basically everything that's not drums, because drums I just want to be like kind of blazing through. I just want them to be kind of the attack part of everything. But when you can hear, like it's subtle, like in the group, it doesn't sound like it's pumping like crazy, but when you solo it, it's like, oh shit, it really is ducking out of the way of that kick and snare. That's such a huge reason why that kick and that sub and that snare in the drop, I feel like, is coming through so much heavier than if it had like these, different compressor times on certain groups and stuff. Like, stuff's not going to be moving at the same time. It's not going to be releasing at the same time. But if you have it all locked in at once, I mean, you pretty much have the same things happening with everybody,
That makes a lot of sense. That's a good tip. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I remember somebody talking. I think I remember somebody talking about like how to do bootlegs, like remixes and stuff. And literally, this is how you do it. You just take the song, run it up here, low pass filter to about 150 to 200, so you don't lose like a ton of information in the mid range. So when you aren't doing something, it doesn't sound like you obviously dropped a waveform in there or something. Or a WAV file and just started mixing on it, but it's really just that. And that's something I also just learned a couple months ago, but just kind of chop out some pieces and figure out how to make something sound cool out of it. But I just, like, I thought this sound was sick. Like, I think that sound is so sick. So I just was like, oh, I definitely want to use that as some sort of downbeat of a drop or something. I don't know. Yeah, like I create side chains up here. I'm sure a lot of people do this, but like create side chains with super transient heavy samples that aren't long at all. They just are really quick. So you can get a super tight side chain. So, this sample isn't even playing, you don't hear it at all, but it's a really, really quick, just very short, punchy kick and a short, punchy snare. So when you side chain to it, that release time isn't like breathing super long. So, you're not getting like these really weird pumping artifacts and stuff. It's just a very quick, like in and out attack release. And I sidechain, I always use these two samples, this Terror Heavy Snare 11 and the Savage Kick 12. They're just punchy, great sounding samples that I just use all the time for that.
Can we hear what those sound like? Just like.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't think they're not on at all, but this is what the sidechain sounds like.
Hey, man, we're nice and short.
Yeah. Really as short as I can find. I mean, they're just, the samples themselves, like, they sound cool. Like, I think they sound fine, but it's not my kind of, at least the kick, I feel like it's never like my kind of like kick for a lot of stuff like this, but it's amazing for a sidechain. I mean, it's like so to the point, and that's exactly what you want.
Yo, one other thing I was wondering about this one was how you went about the drop arrangement. Like, you found your sounds that you wanted to use first, or did you kind of have something in mind like beforehand? Or
Man, that is literally the hardest thing for me doing and writing any song is the drop. That is like the hardest. Like, I feel like most people write the drop first and then write the song around it. And for me, I can write all day long drums and intros and build-ups and shit, but when it comes to the drop, I'm always second guessing what I'm doing. So for this, I just kind of knew I wanted a lot of interplay between, like, so my thought process in this stuff is literally on the first hit, like immediately, there's got to be some sort of impact, which is this guy. Just a quick, yep, there it is, a growl, like a very quick growl, which is just this saturated to hell with the soft tube, which I think is sick. I use the soft tube one just as much as I use the decapitator. I think this one sounds awesome. And even the stock Ableton one I think sounds great. Chipped out a little bit of the low end, little OTT, and then also kind of the slightest little boost and then chip out here. But yeah, so I always start, like, I kind of think about it like counting the drops, so you know you're gonna, when you listen to the drums, like when you just solo out the drums, you just do this real quick.
So Michael, do you sample the bass, or use it from some kind of like a serum or something, and you sample it out from serum, or you use a sample from
99.9% of the time it's serum. Sometimes I find like a cool sound, just like any kind of sound, and I sample it and try to turn it into something that is, could be a cool lead or a bass or something. But when you listen to like the drums, especially in like hybrid stuff or dub stuff or stuff like that, I mean, it's very straightforward. I mean, you can hear just the, so you've already got the idea of like, okay, I can feel the vibe of, yeah, okay, so it's very, straight ahead, snares on, every measure, the kicks are pretty straightforward. So you have a lot of room to do interplay kind of in these drop groups. So you think about it as like, well, I'll just play and you can kind of see where this stuff kind of comes in. You won't hear, so the second sound is that sample from the original song that's up top. I just keep it with the stems, but you'll see kind of where this stuff kind of falls in. So, I mean, it's like you can kind of see, okay, right off the bat, that first growl, it's falling on every 4 bars. It's just where I thought, okay, this is where the kick makes sense. It makes sense to fall into there. And then this one, this little, like, was like, okay, that's cool. That could fall in, right after the snare somewhere. And I'll just find a bunch of samples, like usually try to do like 5 to 6, and then I'll start arranging them in a way that's like, oh, this could be kind of cool. Like this rhythm is kind of cool. It's mainly because the drums are so straightforward, you have a lot of room in a lot of trap stuff and dubstep stuff to create cool different rhythms with the basses and leads. So it's almost just like trial and error, just like playing with it until you find something that's cool. This was kind of my first jump into doing like more hybrid stuff, because this is kind of the direction of what I really enjoy making. And it was a challenge because of that reason. I had never really sat and figured out exactly that, like, what is the arrangement? How do you go about that kind of stuff? But honestly, when you listen to the drums, it might feel dumb or sound dumb, but like, if you just like kind of hum along, like different, like, where you'd think a bass should be, or where you think like a lead could be or something like that, literally just jot it down on a piece of paper, or just write in a MIDI note. That doesn't have to be anything. Like every single one of these MIDI notes, for the most part, is just an F sharp. It's just the basses and the lead sounds that are in Serum allow that F sharp to be like, oh, it's running through an LFO that's doing a cool pattern or something. So literally everything you see here, all of this is just a single note in Serum that creates this sample, And after that sample is played, you know, it's like, okay, cool. It sounds really intricate, but it's really just the same note with different samples. So it's just kind of going about it, trying to figure out how to arrange those samples so you have a rhythm that kind of keeps your head moving. And you should be able to just like keep rocking, like while you're listening to them. It's like, oh yeah, I can see how all these basses and leads kind of interplay off one another.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah.
The first time I heard your joke, man, and it almost smashed my screen up, man. Like, what the f? Like, wow. It's like crazy, man.
Thanks, man.
And you know, I'm a trans guy as well, but you know, but that is just like, what the hell? Like, wow.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really good. Good job, man. Good job.
How long did it take you, Mike?
Let's see. The principal idea of it probably took a day or so, and then
wow,
I'd say the song ended up being like, I got it start to finish. I'd say there was like a 3 or 4 day gap where I was out of town, so I didn't play with it, but I'd say it took about a week and a half to 2 weeks, like, to get it pretty much from idea, like, oh, it'd be cool to do this remix, to, you know, having it finished.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I said this in like kind of the group chat before, but I try now to stop like trying to create the most perfect song on earth. And I more so just want to make, like, I just want to make something that right in that moment, I'm like, yeah, this sounds awesome. And just try to get it down and then get to the mixing stage and then kind of like the car test stage. And then by that point, everything that's in there, it's like, yeah, cool. This sounds sick. I like this. It might not be the best thing that's ever existed, but at the same time, I can't imagine that any producer is doing this stuff and they're like, this is the best song I've ever done and I will never top this. Like, and if you are doing that, then there's no point, you know? So, yeah, I'd say roughly it's about 2 weeks, like pretty much from the thought of how it should be to
Right. Do you ever in that position when you sit down and it's like, okay, I go make something, there's nothing coming to, you know, I just try and make it and there's nothing come to your mind, like, what the hell, like, you know, I was like 2-3 days, like, come on, something. I'm playing for like all day, I got them keyboard, man. Just like, nah, it's just not that what I'm looking for, you know.
Oh yeah, man. Every day of my life. I think
it's like everyone else is right. Oh, cool. So it's not just me.
Oh no way, man. I've only really been at this for like a year to a year and a half. I came from an audio engineering background, but like literally the first like honestly up until maybe September, October, I would sit down and I would write. I mean, I write every day, and 90% of it I throw into the recycle bin because it's just like it's not gelling. But every time that I do that stuff, I feel like it's very easy to be like, I learned something every single time. I learned something that I'm doing. And the big one with this song was I really wanted to get like a sub and everything to really fucking punch, like really be a heavy, heavy song. And that was my goal in making this remix because I think the song is amazing. I think it's like such a beautifully deep song when you like just see the video for it and just the way it's mixed. If you go and actually listen to it on a nice set of speakers, the song I think is in G. So like the sub, when the sub hits, it's not the sub at like top G. I mean, he put it in like the lowest register. So when you listen to it on like a nice set of speakers, it's like insane how deep it is. And for me, it was just like, man, I want to be able to create something like this, but maybe a little bit higher energy. And so going into it, it was just like, yeah, I don't know if this will even pan out and become anything at all, but I want to learn how to make something that sounds like this. So yeah, I sit down every day, man, and I would say 90% of the time, nothing ever comes out.
Awesome.
Yeah. one other thing that I'm really curious about, since you do come from an audio engineering background, is like, as you sit and write your songs, is there anything you do as far as gain staging that's just like second nature to you at this point? Or do you have to like fuck with levels throughout the whole thing?
I do fuck with stuff almost exclusively like the entire time that I'm mixing, but right off the bat, I usually pull my kick way down because I know that's going to be the loudest thing next to the snares in the mix. Like, I like to mix stuff pretty loud, but I know the kick is always going to be the predominant thing. So I try to pull my kick down right away to like between -6 and -10, depending on the sample, depending on how it is. And from there, as long as I know that everything that I'm putting into the session never reaches above that kick, I usually am okay, like in the meters. Now, that's not all the time, because when you start layering stuff, and it's that can start taking up a lot of energy and things like that too. So it's pretty easy to kind of start fucking with stuff like that too. But I do think that right off the bat, like I'm mixing as I go all the time. Like I'm always mixing as I go. I never just get every idea down that I can and then mix at the end, because if something sounds like shit to me while I'm recording it, I lose interest and I toss it. So I've got to mix like while I'm going to keep myself interested in it. So, that's why I guess towards the end too, like when the song is pretty much takes shape, there's not a ton I need to do left in mixing other than like small intricities and tiny little things that might help it. But for the most part, yeah, I try to mix as I go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I totally get that, especially because in this music, like so much of the sounds that we make for it is like completely dependent on post-processing, or at least a lot of it, right?
Oh yeah.
And so
totally.
Do you run like a metering plugin just to make sure you're not like jumping over -6 or -10 or whatever, or
Nah,
it's just like difficult,
I usually just listen. I usually just try to, like, I'm listening, if I can listen to it and I look at the master, and the master is like hitting around -4, and as long as I keep it around there and the mix itself sounds good to me, then, I'm usually okay with that. The thing that I've run into recently that I've just started figuring out how to fix was kind of that sub to kick relationship in mastering, how to make it loud and still have a lot of low end without it ducking everything that's, coming up against it, which I finally have started to figure out that relationship in the mastering stage too. But yeah, I mean, main thing is that it's super important just to like gain stage right off the bat, because then you don't have to do like a bunch of surgical shit at the end and pull stuff down when you've already automated other stuff. And it's a pain in the ass to do it later on. So I would just suggest dropping in a kick that you really like, pulling it down to -6 or -10, and then work around that. And if you're still clipping, then just start grabbing entire groups and just bringing them down, a decibel at a time until you're hitting like that -3, -4.
Okay. Got you. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because usually like I'll sit there and do the individual samples and it'll be like 4 a.m. before I've even like written anything I wanted.
Oh,
That's good advice. All right.
Yeah, I just do them all as groups just to keep your flow like nice and quick too. One thing that I think was my favorite part about this song, I think, is the second drop kind of lead sound. And it's kind of weird, and I'm looking at it now that I froze it and deleted the sample. So I wish I could show you what that looked like prior, but I can explain it to you after I hear it. But this is kind of what that lead sounds like on its own. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And yeah, let's see. I took the front end of this too, just this little snip, like just that, ran it through a shit ton of reverb, reversed it, did all this stuff to it, and then leading into the drop, it's got this, it like cuts, and every time it like cuts out, you'll see I have this like bass clef, like easy washout thing, kind of leading up into it and pitching down, because I feel like it leads into that lead really well and kind of gives it a better, just it doesn't come out of nowhere. Like it actually sounds like it's supposed to be there. So when you add those, it completely changes the character of it. Quick little like trick that I think is kind of sick, that it just kind of leads into the parts. It makes it sound super heavy because you have so much stuff pulling back. Like it sounds like when you take a reverb and put it before an OTT and the reverb's just like all the way up to 10. It's just having a chance to kind of catch up with the lead. And I just think it sounds so sick. But yeah, this lead was a preset, a Serum preset that was like I wish I could remember but you can see, I guess, a little bit of the processing. It was mainly just like a very long saw wave that had like a portamento on it and a really short room reverb. That the short room reverb was almost at 100%, but it was also compressing that room reverb. So I had that kind of feeding down here. Like I froze it to audio. Like I was saying earlier, it's easier for me to freeze stuff because then I can't go back and like keep second guessing myself. But I froze it to audio, threw an EQ on it, another EQ that's a little bit of a boost, and another one that pulls out of it. But this sound is mainly like that, this little plugin right here. If you go up to compressed or like audio effects, type in compressed, they'll come up with space, hit space, this thing called compressed room reverb. This shit is so tight. Like it sounds so sick. And it's mainly just a compressor and a room reverb that you can adjust its size. And putting that stuff on leads sounds so cool. And that's what that was here. And then ran it through some OTT. And then I also rebounced it again. And then that's where we got to this spot here, all this stuff. So it's like some crazy portamento notes and stuff, but it sounds way more insane than I think the preset would lend you to believe that it actually is. But I think it's just such a sick preset.
Yeah, dude, you nailed that second drop. That was fucking impressive. And I like that that little washout sound. It sounds like it's coming right at you when you play it on some monitors. It's really dope.
Yeah, that's like another cool trick I think that works really well when, yeah, it's just so cool because then it kind of leads into the next part. Like it's like a bridge in between the parts. So it's so cool. It's like, and I do it at the end of parts too. So when you hear it leading out of the drop, like I know we talked about transitions a bunch in Sarik's class. So this is, I think, kind of one of those tricks that leads into the next part so well when you hear just the so you just get this wash of sound. So when it goes back, when you hear it leading back into that part, like it just makes a world of difference how clean that can actually sound, but kind of bridges those two parts.
Absolutely.
I layer a ton of ARPs and supersaws that are kind of barely noticeable in a lot of it, but you can hear just adding in this ARP. So yeah, that's kind of all the tonal stuff that happens in the song is just from these four things. Oh, and I have this frozen art part that I think sounds cool too. It's just like this. And that is like an ARP loop from that Cymatics pack Infinity. That was a D sharp minor one that I just pitched up to F sharp, cut it literally in half, and then just use the beginning of each one, and then I pitched each one. So this one you can see is up 15 steps because it's way like a way low sample. This one here is up 23 steps, 27, 27. And that's what creates the same chords here, but it's just another layer, like this added top layer that you don't even notice it's there until you solo it. But when you hear it, like it's really noticeable in the beginning of the song. So now that you've heard it, now listen to the beginning of the song. I mean, it's like that's what gives you that airiness initially. So
Yeah.
Cool, man. Very, very cool shit.
That's awesome. How about your returns? You've got 2 returns. Do you use like reverbs and returns mostly, or just on the tracks?
Say on my returns. Let's see. Yeah, I think I have a hollow on here, and then let's see if I'm actually sending anything to it. I'm really bad at sending stuff to returns because I think it's great when they share space with one another. Oh yeah, cool. See you, Fedor. Talk to you soon, man. Yeah, like on the return side of stuff, I don't think I'm using much actually going into the return. I think the only, here we go. So on the claps, using some on the claps, a ton on this hi-hat loop, it looks like. Yeah, ton on that hi-hat loop. This perk loop was all the way at 100, like sent completely to it because of one little tonal sound that's in it. Sounded really weird without it. But yeah, it was like this, like a little kind of bongo-ish sound, I think matched the song really well, but it sounded so dumb when it didn't have this reverb on it. So I just cranked it, put it there, and then I think the snare might have like a small touch of, no, I guess I took it off. But yeah, I don't really do a ton on the returns. I usually try to process them all within the groups. So the groups themselves always have like share like a common thing. Like the snares, I'm doing this UAD Teletronics thing, which is just the LA2, like the standard thing. It's really smacking it very lightly, not really doing much at all. So, but yeah, I mean, that's mainly it on that stuff. Let's see if there's anything I'm missing or anything that,
on your low end, was it just like the kick and an 808, or did you have like some sub or something else in there?
Nope, just kicking an 808. I kind of learned that little trick from, well, not that it's a trick necessarily, but I feel like the simpler a lot of the low end stuff is, the better.
Yeah.
And something I started noticing is that if you listen to that Jack U record, like it's literally just a kick, and it's literally just like the kick and snare and an 808 sample. Like it doesn't sound like there's really much else happening. There might be a ton, but it's just so simple and how it's executed that I just feel like that is kind of what I always try to go for, is just do a simple, 808 loop and a kick it. And so when you just hear the drums alone, it's just this. Let's see if I turn on this master chain, if it'll bring it out a little bit more. So yeah.
You have to like I have I'm working on a track and I'm using like an 808 and everything.
Yeah.
But the 808 dies out like too quickly on some of the sections I need.
Yeah, totally.
So did you like extend it, or they just like worked out perfectly for you?
It worked out that way. A lot of these 808s, like when you go, let's see, some of them. I mean, some of them you can even hear. What's that hybrid trap one? Like this one, like that's kind of long. That's super long. That's long. That's pretty short though. Like, so if I heard something like that and I was like, oh shit, like I love the way this 808 sounds, but it's too short, then I'll probably just move on to try to find something similar, or just find one that's close and kind of match with whatever characteristics I enjoyed of that. But I will say the best 808, are you on Ableton or are you on
FL?
Okay. They might have a built-in thing too, but the built-in Ableton hip hop sub, I think, is one of the best subs that you can find like anywhere. It just sounds great. It's just set up for very, very easy, just drag into the session, and it's going to sound good. But a lot of times, yeah, with these 808s, I mean, I have so many of them at this point that it's like, it's like, oh, that sounds cool. That's much cleaner, not what I'm going, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of just trial and error with a bunch of stuff. And I think 808s, snares, and kicks are like my vice, are the things that every time I see a sample pack that has some cool stuff in it, I'm like, oh man, I just got to get it. And I just end up buying it. So, but yeah, I mean, you can probably try to drag them out to be a little bit longer, but it also will probably kind of fizzle out quicker than it should anyway.
Yeah. Like I just kind of did like a quick splice, and you can hear like the pop.
Yeah.
Like,
but I will say, I think short 808 sometimes sounds sick. Like when it just punches like right off the bat and dies out. Like that's another kind of Jack U thing that I think if you listen to that song Febreze, like that 808 is like so short. Same with that song Mind that's on there too. I just feel like the kick hits and there's a huge blast of a low end and then it just goes away. And I feel like that sometimes makes that kick sound so much cooler, but it's all kind of in the characteristic of the track too.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah. That's most of the track. White noise, big thing in drops. Just literally pure white noise. Super important. Takes up a ton of high-end stuff that if you feel like it's lacking punch or anything, throw in some white noise and mix it in, and sometimes it takes care of that. But yeah, that's pretty much the track. Did anybody else have any questions or anything?
Yo, Mike.
Yo.
Did you record this? Because I'm just coming in. I'm late to the party.
Oh yeah. We did record it, I think.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was like, fuck! I just saw this, and now I'm here, and it's over.
Hey, no worries, man. I mean, I'll stick around if you have any questions on anything or anything too, but don't feel like anybody needs to stick around all night. But I just love talking about this shit, so it's very easy.
One thing we didn't get on record was like the various groups you had. I remember we started just after that. That'd be kind of cool to
oh yeah. Well, yeah, you can see them pretty quickly. Sidechain group, the stems of the actual song, my kick group, my snare group, all top drums, all this stuff that isn't kick and snare, bass and sub drops, FX, and then my drop basses and the stuff that exists. Well, I guess that it's not just drop stuff because there's a ton of shit here too, but mainly synths, basses, things like that are the bulk of the song. But I just put everything in there, color code it, and that's pretty much the bulk of it.
Really good, man.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, really good. And thanks, you guys, as well, and everything. And yeah, I think I'm going to hit the bed soon because it's already, again, 4:12 a.m.
Oh, yeah, man.
It's meant to be I go sleep tonight. Is it happy heading? Oh, guys, of course. No happen again. God damn it. Oh, anyone want this Chainsmoker? I had to send a few of you guys yesterday. Anyone want these flyers? Or is it worked? Or the Chainsmoker I bought it yesterday for my EDR sounds. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about the
You get a mic? You got that one, or not yet?
No, I haven't done. I don't do a lot of ADSR stuff. I have 2-3 packs of them. Um,
Honestly, this is like something super different than any other ones. I'm really shocked. It sounds like almost like like one of those Climatics one.
Man, that's awesome.
Just check it out. Seriously, really good. It's
Cool.
so clear, and everything is so clear in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you want to, you can send it for your email, mate. If you want to just post this for you, man,
Yeah, please do. I would love to have it.
So if anyone you guys want this, just send your emails, and I can post it for you guys for your email address. With web transfer or whatever.
Cool. Perfect, man. Thank you.
So all right, well, thank you. It was really good yesterday. It's awesome feedbacks. I like that. Good video as well.
Oh yeah.
And so are we going to do more like this as well? And like group sessions, like in Zoom and stuff, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to do them. I'm
Cool.
down to do them as long as everybody else, or if anybody wants them or anything like that. I'm down to kind of go through this shit and talk shop.
Man, definitely like
Looking
scores.
for it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Mike, if you wouldn't mind sending me the video from this.
Yeah, man, no problem. I'll just try to fucking drag and drop it into something so everybody can hear it.
Yeah, dude.
This whole thing, it's like, doing Ableton stuff, it's like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then when it comes to doing literally anything else with technology, it's like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, dude, I feel that.
Check it up on retransfer. Seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That way everybody can kind of hear the audio with everything too. But
Was that the same thing that we used on the one-on-ones?
yeah, I think so. But yeah.
Cool.
What else?
Dude, yeah, that'd be sick. I just don't want to ask like the same questions that other people already asked,
I don't care, man. I mean, you're more than welcome. If there's anything you want to see or talk, I'm more than happy to do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, from your track, I just remembered the sub being really cool.
Thanks, man. That's like the hardest thing for me to get right, I think. But
Dude,
yeah.
it's such a nightmare for me.
Yeah, it's a pain in the end. Like it's just this drop right here. It's literally just this hybrid trap 808. It's in E, so I pulled the root down to E, and then I have the MIDI information here that just plays it, and it's the smallest bit of EQ. Kind of chops out the top stuff because there wasn't a ton of information in there, but that's really it. That and this compressor. This So this compressor.
Okay.
Right, that's
and then decapitator, is that just like adding like
a little grit to it.
Yeah.
Not a ton, I don't think. Maybe a lot more than I think. Oh yeah, way more than I thought. So definitely way more than I thought. But yeah, so that's there. And then actually, one thing I actually forgot to show. So that sub is completely different than what's in the rest of the song. The rest of the song is this space. So.
Oh, the hip hop sub.
Like I usually use that for drops. I usually use it for the entire song, but I just like the sound of this 808 where it kind of decayed a little bit at the end. So
Yeah.
I felt like that was more appropriate for the drop. But yeah, the 808 sub is pretty much all I used or the hip hop sub throughout the rest of the song. Like, so after the drops, when like I try to kind of make them sound seamless. So you get this drop and then you get into the next part. Just like trying to play with the relationship of how loud one is versus the other, so it doesn't sound like a huge different instrument is coming in.
Yeah. Shit, yeah, I need to get my hands on that hip hop bass.
Dude, it sounds great. I might just start rendering out samples out of it, and then I can send them to people, so you can just drop them into your sampler if you're on FL or if you're in Logic or anything like that. Like, I might just try to make a few samples of that hip hop sub so people can have it, because I think it sounds awesome. I think it's like the heaviest, deepest sub that's
Yeah, I know Nightmare uses it, and then I've heard a bunch of hip hop artists use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the prime thing. I just think it sounds great. I think it's I don't know. I just think it's an awesome instrument. I think that fucking rocks. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else I can think of. Kind of went through some snare stuff and build-ups. Oh yeah, utilizing the trick of brass and glass breaking is always cool in the build-up. So like this little thing here is like just in the build-up itself. I always try to take the lead, low pass it, bring it in. But then this little swell here is the brass.
Oh, cool.
And so it's super subtle in the mix. But
damn,
just kind of brings out that immediate hit transient right away.
Yeah.
I just think it's pretty sick. But yeah, those like reversing stuff into a build, or reversing it out of a drop or into a drop. I think that's like the key to make that stuff sound heavy as shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do a lot of that sometimes.
Yeah, I saw like 6 reverses. That's awesome.
Well, that was one thing that I learned actually in Skrillex class that I thought was sick, is that his whole thing was, don't be stingy on
the risers.
I mean, it's like, and the more I did it was like, yeah, this actually sounds way cooler having, 5 instead of 2. Like, yeah. So I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever listened or thought about was that Flux Pavilion advice, where it was literally just like, spend as much time on your buildup as you can. Like, I think I'm trying to think of the right wording for it. It was like, it's super easy to burst the bubble, but not so easy to build it.
Yeah. That was pretty much exactly it. Yeah.
I feel like that could not be more. That's like, it couldn't be more true, because that's why I think Yuki is so sick, because a lot of times their drops are literally just a kick, a sub, a snare, and one small sample or a vocal. But it's so heavy because the buildups before it give you so much tension.
Yeah. That's a great point, because Yuki definitely has some of the best builds I've ever heard.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like that song Subs, I feel like is that one thing where it's just like, holy shit, when it comes in, it's like so heavy. But it wouldn't be like that if you didn't have that like long drawn out build that goes into it, which I think is so sick. But
That's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, spending a lot of time on builds I think is super important. Getting in and out of builds to make sense. I use this in every track I do, is this guy.
Oh, dude, I use that too, like crowd effects.
Yep, crowd effects. I use them in everything because they just fill up space. They pull in, they make your claps sound better and bigger, and you're not relying on one clap for it to be like a thing that makes sense for everything.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the song. Is like trying to think if there's anything I kind of missed or
Did you have the acapella from the song, or?
Nope. I just had this.
I like the full song.
Just ran this low pass filter at around 150, almost 200. Throw on one of these bass clef washouts, this auto filter, boosted a tiny bit of the highs right in this, like the slightest bit. But yeah, I mean, the whole song is just the song. I just, bootlegged it. And then you can see in the very beginning of the song, it starts with this washout and a filter. So
very cool.
It gives like the vibe of the song, but then I wanted my, like, if I kind of, let's see, if I like took this out and you just listen to, like, it still has the same kind of vibe, but with it just brings in that airiness of the song itself. So
yeah, Cool, man.
But,
Mike,
yeah. Go ahead.
Do you use a lot of you did also processing finding from like mastering chains and stuff like that from Apollo and stuff?
The mastering chain?
Yeah. Do you use any like a Shadow Hill and stuff like that from Universal or anything like that, or?
Nope. I literally just use all the stock Ableton shit because I ran out of the demos on the other stuff, and I don't feel like paying $400 for a compressor. So,
I see.
But the Oxford limiter, I have that. This EQ8 in Ableton, I think it's great because you can do the mid-side mode, which is so important in mastering, being able to like really duck out a lot of the stuff, like a lot of stuff on the sides, like pull out a ton of that low end in the sides, and it really helps like getting that low end super tight. These glue compressors, I think, sound fine. Like they do exactly what they should do. I do have Isotope, it's Ozone. Really, I just use the limiter out of that, the limiter, and let's see what else. Yeah, limiter, imager, exciter, dynamics, all the stuff that's like pretty standard, but it's also kind of it's working at a really relatively low, like I'm not doing a ton with it. I'm not doing a ton with it, just kind of there. But yeah, if I could afford all the Shadow Hill stuff and all that other stuff, I'd probably have it too, but I just can't afford it just yet, but maybe one day.
Do you know how I buy it, Matt? How I bought it?
What's that?
I live on Cornface for 4 months. 3 months, sorry. nothing, I just Cornface fucking all fucking day, man. Like, God.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of stuff I don't mind. Like, I bought Serum. I literally every sample pack and shit like that, I'm one of those freaks that buys them. I don't know. Like, I rarely ever torrent stuff only because I feel like what's going to happen is I'm going to lose something or it's going to get fucked up and stop working like right at the time when I need it. So I just never torrent anything. But that being said, that always ends up being a hefty bill when you try to, buy a nicer compressor and shit like that. But at the same time, I just feel like there's never been once in my life where I said, man, I think these drums sound sick. If only I had a Shadow Hills compressor to make them sound better. Like, it's never happened to me. I usually just think I need to compress these, so I'll use the compressor. And I just think sometimes people get, super locked into this like plugin idea that if they buy this plugin, it's going to make everything sound amazingly cool. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong because I've never had any of the nice ones.
I tried before, man. I know before when I don't have that before the Shadow Hill. I know this Universal stuff, man. My sound is just different now. As I have these plugins, man, it just changed completely the whole character of the song.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't just give you warm feeling, but it also give you a nice old, like one of those deep piano feeling, and which is really good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have some stuff because I run everything out of an Apollo Twin, so you get some of the UAD stuff like right off the bat, and all the UAD stuff I think is really sick. I think that stuff sounds really good, but yeah, I try not to get too locked into plugin stuff, and I just try to make do with what I got and try to make it sound cool, because eventually if I can make it sound cool with like stock stuff, then you should be able to.
But that's the good in Ableton, man. The sound is really good, as generally it sounds so good, all the stock plugins in it, which is really good.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
I think Ableton sound-wise is better than Logic, man. I can definitely say that.
I think you guys have some killer reverbs, and I think Ableton lacks that pretty hard, but I think I use Valhalla on almost everything anyway, so it's usually pretty cool with me. But yeah. Anyone else have anything, or?
I think it should be for me. I think it's time to turn the light off now. I think for me.
Cool.
Okay, my next 17, mate. It's so good.
Yeah, of course. I'll try to get this this video uploaded.
Dude, thanks, Mike. You man.
No problem.
It was awesome.
We all keep group together, man. It's really cool, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you guys for hanging, talking shop for a while. If you need anything, or if you guys have any questions on anything or anything else, by all means.
Yeah, that group was just so sick, man. It just everything come to life, It's just since we left the masterclass, man. I mean, it's just the group when as soon as it's come to life, spend more time
yeah.
with the group and everything else, man.
Yeah,
No,
no, I
it's-
totally agree. It's good to have a group of people that are just as stoked about stuff. So, but yeah, I'll pull this down and then I will try to upload it so everybody can have it.
Okay, cool, excellent, mate. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Cheers, man.
Cool, guys. Have a great night.
You
Yeah,
too,
man. You
guys.
too. Peace out.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one, guys. Bye.